Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Topical Hour. Injustice 3 is a fighting game that may or may not come to pass. I recently made a video on Injustice 2 in the first game to some extent, and all my whining kinda got me thinking about what an Injustice 3 game could or should look like. Now, it's important to note that I'm not going to suggest new features as much as I'm going to try to improve what the second game did. To start, the roster needs a complete redesign. The problem with about half of the roster of the second game is that they either don't belong in the game, but they're not enticing enough to be DLC, or vice versa. The most egregious example of this is with Ryan Choi's Adam, who actually plays a part in the Injustice story, but was kept as DLC because he's one of the more radically different characters. As for characters I actually want in the game, I listed a few last time, but a more complete list is Mr. Terrific, Plastic Man, Zatanna, Killer Croc, Clayface, Bumblebee from the Titans, Raven also from the Titans, possibly Gizmo or Jinx because of the desperate need for villains, and I think Vibe would also fit in pretty well, along with the rest of the Hive. Granted, some of these characters are dead or don't fit, but I still think we have too many tactical bat-like characters, and I think the arcane and metaphysical is sorely lacking. All of the characters play kinda the same, either feeling tactical and quick or big and slow. I think it would be interesting to have small but strong characters or arcane characters like Constantine who move really fast and use their spells to take damage rather than just taking damage. Also, I think some of the DLC characters in the first game could be cool, like Zatanna, like I already said, and Martian Manhunter. I just feel like we're not taking advantage of the massive DC roster. And if you think there's now no characters for DLC, you're wrong. First off, we could get 2 MK characters like Jax and maybe Fujin. Again, people who play different. And if you want more, we could tap into the Watchmen universe. Get Night Owl and the Comedian, maybe Silk Spectre, Rorschach, Ozymandias. Not Manhattan, obviously, because there is no fighting him, but still. And if you want more core DC characters, we got Granny Goodness, Atomica, Nightwing, the good one, and more. The problem with these characters is nothing. They're perfect. Actually, maybe they're really difficult to program and some of their alternate outfits just wouldn't work. Like, besides Elongated Man, I don't know what gear or alternate outfits Plastic Man would even have. Same for Mr. Terrific. But we could just scrap the gear system overall. But because that'll never happen and it's pretty much here to stay for NetherRealm games, we'll assume Injustice 3 would have to have it in some capacity. Now for character abilities. I actually think that was one of the few good things in Injustice 2 that was pretty much flawless, but I do not like the stats system. I think gear should be like MK11, where you level up any gear depending on what you like, and then you slot in abilities or modifiers. This is good because A, a lot of the gear in these games looks like dog booty, and it's a lot cooler when you can pick something that you think is epic or maybe even funny. And B, it incentivizes leveling up more than one character rather than maining one for months at a time. I'm always left wondering why these games attempt to have sprawling, cool rosters and then make it so that you have to spend unearthly amounts of time leveling up each character. Whereas in MK11, you level up some gear, you collect modifiers and augments and intros, a healthy balance of aesthetic and actual use. Keeping on the gameplay track, I really like that a lot of the combos in Injustice 2 actually do correlate with the characters. The best examples of this are probably Batman, Catwoman, Green Lantern, and Harley Quinn. You can use Batman's gadgets, Lantern's constructs, Harley Quinn's movement in general. I really appreciate when a character's fundamental abilities are fused with the gameplay. Sometimes it's easy to forget that in general, the only reason we should be making superhero games is to know what it's like to use superpowers. So when powers and abilities aren't integrated into the gameplay, that's a problem that needs to be fixed. But the bigger problem is that we're running out of stuff to adapt to the Injustice games. So we gotta make some stuff up. Yeah, you heard me. We're gonna have to get creative if we want to continue this story, so we're probably gonna have to take inspiration from other stories and just kinda throw them in there. For starters, we need an outside catalyst to spur the heroes and villains into action again. Something believable and not alien-like in the second game, or else we're just retreading old ground. This is your reminder to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, I say we turn the Atom, Ray Palmer's Atom, into a villain who wants to kill every member of the regime who's imprisoned. And he goes for Superman first. I mean, technically he doesn't have to. He could, kill off a few of the other regime members that we don't want in this game, but still, I think he should go for Superman first. This does a few things. One, it establishes a reason for the Circle of Trust, or basically the new Justice League, to be against him. 2, it gives the old regime a reason to be against him. And 3, it allows some kind of conflict that leads to Superman getting out of the Phantom Zone. So, I say the game should start with Palmer and a group of Hive members breaking into the Fortress of Solitude to get to the Phantom Zone. Batman tries to stop them, and then Batman dies. That's right, Batman has to die to put stakes on the story. I've been informed by someone named Calm Unsense that killing Batman is a bad idea. So we're going to leave him wounded. So wounded that he needs a MacGuffin for the Circle of Trust to save him, and he's going to be out of commission for the entire game until the end, kind of like Laurie Strode in Halloween Kills, except it's a fighting game so he'd be put on the back burner anyway. So, Superman got out, he's MIA, and Adam got away along with his goons. Adam sends off 2 teams of whatever assortment of villains, one to take over the new watchtower that's being constructed in space to find Superman, and the other to Atlantis to get whatever Batman needs before the Circle of Trust can, and to kill Aquaman if they can along the way. We get down to Atlantis, Arthur's imprisoned, and Ocean Master has taken over. So the Circle takes down Ocean Master and Adam's goons, but not before Arthur escapes and takes the MacGuffin with him, running off to the surface world. Meanwhile, at the watchtower, the rest of the Circle fights off the Adam's team, but they're laid out and sent back to Earth. Remember, Adam isn't killing heroes unless they were part of the regime, and his goons will play by his rules, at least for now. Adam finds Superman, Wonder Woman intercepts and fights off a bunch of guys, she and Superman leave, get Aquaman, and boom. Now we got a Circle of Trust, now we got regime players, and now we got Adam's guys. That's a solid ground for a story, if you ask me, and it's a ton more natural than I feel Injustice 2 was. We're expected to believe that Brainiac, Supergirl, and a bunch of people were destined to end up in the fight. Whereas with the story I just began, it's the consequences of the first 2 games that are spurring the story, while still remaining an outside force that's fresh, and that we haven't seen in the universe as of yet. It's so easy to tell a new story in a game like this because after the last game, we're not really limited by the comics anymore. This is a super-powered dystopia with every flavor of hero and villain there is. It should be a little easier to make things less boring, which is a huge issue I had with the second game. But moving on, now we gotta hit the last and probably most important thing aside from actual gameplay, and that's progression. As much as I like to criticize MK11, they did have some genuinely banger ideas. For starters, we're ditching the multiverse. It was a really stupid way to set up fights, and all the little fight descriptions are kind of stupid and don't really even make that much sense. So instead, we're going to make it so that each one is a different city. Star City, Central City, Gotham, Bloodhaven, Keystone, Metropolis, each tower will be represented by a different city. If you're going to say that doesn't make much sense in canon, neither did the multiverse in the last game, but we're just not going to pretend like it does in my game. Like in MK11, there will be a character tower so you can get rewards for your character rather than getting the randomized garbage, and there will be a similar tower for co-op online shenanigans. There will also be a training tower, a challenge tower where there's just random but difficult modified fights, and there will be a tower with singular really difficult bosses that refreshes every 12 hours. And there's like another tower or 2 for whatever you want, you choose. So, to recap, we have an improved roster of characters that actually plays differently and fights dynamically, and doesn't retread old ground. We have gameplay that is tied to each character's power inherently, and combos and special moves and stuff. We have a gear system that incentivizes using gear that you think looks cool or funny or whatever you want. We have a story that is a direct consequence of the previous stories told in the series, but it still introduces new characters, keeps things fresh and interesting with new storylines, rather than just saying the same stuff with new graphics. And we have an improved grind system that gives all the choice to the player on how they want to upgrade their characters or challenge themselves. And we even got rid of the bogus loot drop system that also was represented by mother boxes. I genuinely don't know why they did it like that. It makes negative sense in canon, but whatever. And honestly, if we really want to monetize something past the game itself, we have DLC characters from Watchmen and other stuff. And we can make the shaders bought with source crystals just like the last game, that way you can grind them slowly or buy them quickly. Also, and I hate to say this because I appreciate the last game a lot, but we gotta improve the intro lines and the intros in general. A lot of the intros and outros in the first game were epic, and then in the second game, again, they were just bland and boring. And then the lines themselves are all just way too vague and are mishmashed together so we can have as many different ones as possible. I don't like that. More effort, please. Well, this brings us to the end of the video. I don't normally include game improvement segments in videos because they're kind of pointless and definitely won't be implemented in the slightest, let alone making a whole video on improving a game. But I have such a deep appreciation of the first game and such a great disappointment in the second game that I wanted to make this video. Also, someone suggested it. But hey, like I said before, I'd love to know what you'd include in this game to make it innovative and fresh, so comment down below. I'm genuinely curious. And obviously, Injustice 3 gets a 10 out of 10 score because it is a flawless game that has no flaws and happens to be without flaw. But that's just what I think. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I'd appreciate it. Or not, that's fine. Play nice, people.